Okay, stay with us for this next item. It's fascinating. It affects us all. We all know that refined sugar is bad for us, but there's a campaign now with leading doctors pushing for food and drink manufacturers to wean us all off it by steadily reducing the amount which is added to things like, believe it or not, soups and also bread and drinks and, of course, breakfast cereals. One of the doctors describes sugar as the new tobacco. So have you already given up sugar? How did you do it? How did it affect you? Is it even possible in our society to give up sugar? You'd have to leave the country during Christmas for a start. At the end of November, we posed the question of whether fizzy drinks were as hazardous to health as cigarettes, and we mocked up this advert for you.
They're a silent killer. You won't see them coming until it's too late. You probably think they're your friend. Harmless. Fun. Fizzy drinks can contain so much sugar that just one a day could double your risk of diabetes. Over time, they raise the risk of heart disease and death. Think before you drink.
So at the time we thought we were just exaggerating for effect there, but now it seems it may not be so far from reality. The campaign group Action on Sugar wants manufacturers to reduce the amounts in food and drinks by 20 to 30% within the next 5 years. So quite a lot. And you may be surprised by some of the foods which are high in sugar. Have a listen.
A small Starbucks caramel frappuccino with cream, 11 teaspoons of sugar. A can of Coca-Cola, 9 teaspoons of sugar. A Mars bar, 8 teaspoons of sugar. A nice bowl of Heinz tomato soup, 4 teaspoons of sugar. A Yo Valley Family Farm 0% fat vanilla yoghurt, 5 teaspoons of sugar. Glasso vitamin water, 4 teaspoons of sugar. Ragu tomato and basil pasta sauce, 3 spoons of sugar per serving. And a 40-gram slice of Hovis soft white bread, nearly half a teaspoon of sugar.
All right, some of that may have surprised you. I'm joined now by the cardiologist, Dr. Aseem Malhotra, who's the science director of Action on Sugar. And also with us is Paul Blanchard, who works in public relations, but gave up sugar himself 6 months ago. So we could talk about how that affected you. But some of those things are surprising there, Aseem, because there are things like tomato soup, which contain sugar, which we never thought did.
No, absolutely, Jeremy. I mean, first of all, I think it's important for your listeners to understand that there is no nutritional value in added sugar whatsoever, and the body doesn't need any carbohydrate for energy from added sugar, contrary to what the food industry want you to believe. They market a lot of their products as saying giving you energy. It's energy you don't want, it's energy you don't need. We know, for example, in the United States, about a third of sugar consumption comes from sugary drinks, about a sixth comes from foods that you normally associate with junk food, like chocolates, biscuits, ice cream. But up to half of sugar consumption comes from foods that people don't even realize have sugar in them, like bread, ketchup, salad dressings, and we're realizing that it's happening here as well.
Somebody just brought a sort of lunch in for me here, which we've got for you now. I don't know what you'll say about this, but this is just from the cafe across the street, mature cheddar cheese and tomato sandwich, white bread there. You wouldn't think there's any sugar in that, but there is there?
I suspect there probably is a bit, yeah. There will be some added to the...
You need to see the label, I guess, but the bread would have sugar in.
Yeah, so the way to kind of read the labels or understand them is 4 grams of... So we'll have carbohydrate-rich sugars. 4 grams is equivalent of 1 teaspoon. We shouldn't really... As I said, you don't need any added sugar in your diet whatsoever. So to give perspective to your listeners, again, American Heart Association 2009 suggested limits for added sugar for the average male of 9 teaspoons a day, the average female 6, and for the average 4 to 8-year-old child, 3 teaspoons of added sugar. You said a Mars bar has 8 teaspoons.
Well, that's what I'm amazed by. So you're actually, if you have 1 can of Coke, you are having 9 teaspoons of sugar, which is as much as you should ever have in a day. Is that right? Well,
yeah, I wouldn't even, I mean, personally, I don't even have that much, but absolutely, that would be a limit. And what's interesting about a can of Coke is there was a very big study published recently, which actually revealed that for every 150 calories of sugar one consumed compared to calories from another source above your normal quota for the day, there was an 11-fold increase in the prevalence of type 2 diabetes that was actually independent of your weight and independent of activity levels. So even if you're slim and exercising, if you're consuming too much sugar, you're still putting your health at risk.
Also in my little lunch bag here, I know this will excite you. So this is one of these flavoured drinks. It's not fizzy. Well, you might have a look. It looks healthy. Yeah, it's a fruit drink.
That's the problem. Even so-called health foods have so much hidden sugar in because dietitians have got it wrong historically and blamed fat as what causes bad health. What they do is, in order to take the fat out and keep the flavour, they then stick loads and loads of sugar in. So actually, low-fat stuff is the worst kind.
So without naming the brand, it's a spring water with pressed lemons and limes, and it has just over a teaspoon of sugar in it.
Yeah. So, Paul, did you find it easy to give up all sugar?
No, it was hell. And it still is hell as well. I occasionally have the odd slip, and it's very, very difficult. But
piece of cake, surely. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, it's a
It
piece of
is
cake.
wonderful,
I mean,
yeah.
to have a piece of cake is a wonderful thing.
yeah, it's strange because everyone's different. I personally never liked drinking Coke. You know, sugar from liquid was never an issue for me. But, you know, show me cookies, cake, anything delicious like that, and I would always want one. And that's the problem, of course. If you have one Mars bar, you then want several of them. And that was the biggest problem I had, is if I could resist the first one, but having had one, I would then want to binge. And you've just got to put all your energies into avoiding that first Mars bar.
And then what's the effect on you of having stopped sugar?
Well, I know what the effect is, because if I occasionally slip, which we do, and this is the problem, of course, because, you know, sugar is everywhere, hidden in everything, as you've just said, but I know straight away if I've eaten something with sugar in it, because I feel lightheaded, shaky, I get a crash, and I start to get a little bit, you know, I have skin problems on my face, I get like a little bit of eczema, so I know if I've eaten sugar, because even now, as someone who tries to avoid sugar, even if I think I've avoided it, if I sometimes get eczema the day after, I know I must have eaten something with some hidden sugar in it.
Now, Aseem, let me ask you about Guy over here, my colleague who runs the desk. He's on one of these diets, I think the Paleolithic diet, which probably is a separate item. But hold up what you're drinking, Guy, because this is hit. You see, now that's, I think we could say, is that, oh, he's dropped it. What is it? It's empty bottle, Coke Zero. So that's sold on the base. It's addressing your concerns, that, isn't it? Because what it says is 0 cal, 0 sugar.
Sure, and you know, Action and Sugar isn't specifically talking about you know, artificial sweeteners, but you know, personally, I would just say drink water. I mean, I avoid these artificial sweetened drinks, but they're accustomed to your taste of sugar anyway. So there's been some studies that show that people who drink these sort of diet drinks, or ones that have low sugar or no sugar in them, they will get sugar from other sources because they're still getting the sweet taste.
And the problem you've also got is fruit juice is incredibly unhealthy for you because it's laden with sugar. If you eat a piece of fruit, there's fibre in the pulp which mitigates, it actually delays the digestion and means that the liver doesn't get the sugar hit in one go. But if you take a large glass of orange juice, that's one of the worst things you can possibly have. I used to think smoothies were really healthy, and they're quite the opposite.
Yeah, well, I thought, Aseem, they were full of fruit, but apparently that doesn't
No,
matter.
you're absolutely right. And in fact, that's one of the things, again, a British Medical Journal study actually looked at this and concluded that fruit juice consumption was associated with increased type 2 diabetes, but whole fruit was associated with a decreased risk of type 2 diabetes. And the reason for that is absolutely right. If you think about a full glass of orange juice, you know, you need 4, 5, even 6 oranges in there. You have the calories from the fruit. You don't have the fiber. It's liquid sugar really that you know, gets absorbed very rapidly into the bloodstream, and it's not healthy. And the other thing about vitamins, well, you don't need, you know, 6 oranges to get your vitamin C for the day. You probably need, you know, 1 or 2. So I would say eat whole fruit, but avoid the juice.
And in terms of your campaign, you want them to do to sugar what they did to salt rather successfully. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's what we need to do. We really need to put pressure on the food industry through the Department of Health and say, listen, you know, you've been spiking our food with sugar. You know, there's an opportunity for you to gradually reduce it so that people can get accustomed to the taste over 3 to 4 years. We know the Department of Health suggests that the calorie reduction from that would actually halt the obesity epidemic. My personal view is sugar has additional role other than just calories. And one thing we mustn't forget, actually, the real concern is the way that children have been targeted by the sugar industry. We have 1 in 3 children in this country who are overweight or obese. The commonest cause of chronic pain in children is tooth decay, and the single most important dietary factor is sugar.
Interesting. So the children are taking in a lot more sugar than they were, say, 30 years ago, are they?
Absolutely.
And adults as well?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's some, obviously, the dietary surveys are prone to some error, but in the UK, it's thought that we're consuming the average of about 15 teaspoons of sugar a day. Some people up to 40, 50
Really?
teaspoons of sugar a day.
Really?
And it's well above, you know, what is recommended as a limit. The problem is it's included as a dietary daily amount in the labelling, as if people need added sugar in their diet. You don't need any added sugar in your diet. You do need fat and protein, but you don't need sugar.
I saw a blog pull by an American doctor who said that he's regularly meets patients who don't know what water tastes like and who are consuming about 3 litres of a Coca-Cola a day. Now that, actually, probably for you, when you've given up sugar, you look around, these things really strike you as remarkable.
It is, it's unbelievable. I mean, you only have to walk into a petrol station after you've filled your car up to see what's on offer. It's capitalism, isn't it? They're giving people what they want. You can't buy quinoa salads. They're selling crisps, they're selling Coke, and this is the problem with the capitalist system, as it were. The petrol stations aren't evil, but you can actually see it on a map as well. If you look at a map of the world, you can see a direct correlation between the countries that drink the most soda, for example, and type 2 diabetes, morbid obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver another disease. For example, in the Middle East, they don't drink alcohol largely, so they consume a huge amount more of Coke and sodas, and they have triple the amount of type 2 diabetes. You can plot it on a map.
Completely agree. In fact, what I would say, forget about petrol stations for a second. I mean, obviously we can't avoid it. That's a problem. It's, it's dominating the environment, and any kind of regulation or anything that reduces consumption needs to reduce the availability of sugar. But even hospitals, patients that are bedbound who've come in with a heart attack, for example, or something else and can't even move, there will be contracts with hospitals where trolleys are brought round with full sugared cans of Coke. And patients have spoken to me, and in various places I've worked, and they think because it's being sold to them by the hospital, it's acceptable, and that it clearly is not.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Aseem Malhotra, Science Director of Action on Sugar, and Paul Blanchard, Public Relations Executive who's given up sugar himself, and it seems to be working. It's Radio 2, this is Rod Stewart, talking about whether it's possible to give up sugar in this society.